Hello everyone, Daria here, and welcome to episode 39 of the Slow Russian Language Podcast. In Russia, it's already past midnight, so it's Wednesday, and I'm very sorry for my listeners from Europe who probably missed my podcast today. But for the others, for listeners from the States and from Australia, it's still Tuesday, so hello. As you probably know, this Thursday another Star Wars movie is coming, and I'm very excited, and being a Star Wars fan, I just couldn't avoid making a Star Wars episode. And since we haven't had any real dialogues for a while, I decided to record a conversation between me and my husband, who is a huge Star Wars fan himself. And as usual, first comes the dialogue in real speed, and after that I will translate the whole dialogue sentence by sentence and read it again slowly. So even if your Russian is not advanced, still stay here. You'll learn many interesting words today. Okay, here comes the dialogue.
Давай поговорим про «Звёздные войны». Это... Глазки-то загорелись. Так, загорелись глазоньки. Ну, давай. Почему это твой любимый фильм?
Я смотрел его с 6 лет по несколько раз.
Ты с 6 лет фанат.
Фанат «Звёздных войн». Поскольку это 88-й год, фактически это еще советское время, никаких иностранных фильмов практически не было, за исключением там некоторых индийских, корейских. И то есть для ребенка, который любит такую вот фантастику, снято здорово. По тем временам спецэффекты просто... очень крутые.
Ну да, это сейчас они кажутся уже такими забавными.
И вот это вот как раз световые мечи, которые вот необычные такие совершенно. Вот эта философия как раз вот джедайская. Это вот на мой тогда неокрепший ум оказало неизгладимое впечатление.
Ну, а кто твой любимый персонаж?
Персонаж? Конечно, Хан Соло. Но вот в отличие от многих, кстати, мне очень нравится Люк.
And that was it for the dialogue. Actually, it was just a part of it, and you probably guessed by intonation. Anyways, that's what we have for today. And by the way, today we're having something new. One of my listeners, Mitchell Parker, hello Mitchell, he sent an email to me about 2 weeks ago probably, and he asked me to cut the dialogue in pieces and to insert the sentences into my explanations. So today, after each explanation, I will put the real speed phrase again, so you can check if you understand it or not. Okay, let's start translating. I was the one who started the conversation. Obviously, I guess you recognized my voice. And I said, «Давай поговорим про звёздные войны». Let's talk about Star Wars. The name of the movie, «Звёздные войны», is pretty confusing for many Russians. Because the word войны, when you hear it, it can mean wars, войны, война, войны, and warriors, войны. So many people still think that it's Star Warriors. And it's always so funny for me because even some of my friends, using it in genitive case, they say, «Я не люблю звёздных войнов». So I don't like the Star Warriors. And I always correct them, of course, being pretty annoying to everyone. Okay, then I said, «Это...» and stopped because the face of my husband just changed immediately. He didn't know what we were going to talk about. So there was a pure happiness in his face. And then I said, «О, глазки-то загорелись». Так, загорелись глазоньки. Oh, your little eyes lit up, kindled. And this phrase is just so conversational. Originally, it's an idiom. Глаза загорелись. The eyes lit up, the eyes kindled, or the eyes burned. But here, making it kind of funny, I say глазки, глазоньки. And it sounds absolutely ridiculous. But this phrase, глаза загорелись, or in present tense, глаза горят, it's very common. So let's find some examples. His eyes kindled with joy, like the eyes of my husband. Его глаза загорелись от радости. But be careful, it can mean something very joyful, happy, and the opposite, hatred, anger. For example, her eyes were burning with hatred. Ее глаза загорелись от ненависти. So can be both very positive and very negative. The next sentence. Ну, давай. Почему это твой любимый фильм? Well, let's begin. Why is this movie your favorite? This «ну, давай» is again just a part of the conversational Russian, kind of an intro. Well, let's get started. Well, let's go. Ну, давай. And now, as I promised, that phrase from the dialogue in real speed. So listen carefully.
Давай поговорим про «Звёздные войны». Это... Глазки-то загорелись. Так, загорелись глазоньки. Ну, давай. Почему это твой любимый фильм?
Okay, I hope you understood it. And we're moving on to my husband's response. О, я смотрел его с 6 лет по несколько раз. I've been watching it since the age of 6, each several times. And I guess several is just not enough here. He watched this movie hundreds of times. He literally knows it by heart. I don't see any unknown words here, so just listen to the sentence.
О, я смотрел его с 6 лет по несколько раз.
Okay, we're moving on, because here I interrupted and said, ты с 6 лет фанат? So, since 6 years old, you are a fan. And here I didn't finish because he interrupted. He continued my sentence. Фанат Звёздных войн. A fan of Star Wars. To be a fan of something, фанат чего-то. Maybe you've already seen it on one of my YouTube videos where I explained all those phrases about liking something. But for other listeners, I'll explain again. It's very common to say «Я фанат чего-то». «Я фанат Звёздных войн». I'm a fan of Star Wars. Or «Я фанат рока». I'm a fan of rock. And actually it can be anything, even coffee. Я фанат кофе. Я фанат водки. Я фанат русского языка. So in general, it just means that you like something a lot. And the next sentence. Поскольку это 88 год, фактически это еще советское время. Since it was the year 1988, in fact still the Soviet era. Pay attention that we don't usually say the full numeral. We don't say 1988. We just say the last two numbers. 88. And yes, don't be surprised, it was the year 88, not 77, like in the rest of the world. Because of the political situation in the Soviet Union, this amazing movie came 10 years later, in 1988. Here we have interesting word, Фактически. I guess we met it already several times in my podcast. Фактически. In fact. Or sometimes it means actually. For example, imagine the situation that there is a group of people and everyone is pretending to work. And only one person is actually working. So you can say, in fact, he did all the work by himself. Фактически он сделал всю работу сам. Or maybe, actually, she's the manager of the project. Фактически она руководитель проекта. Okay, now listen to these two sentences from the dialogue.
Ты с 6 лет фанат.
Фанат Звёздных войн. Поскольку это 88-й год, фактически это еще советское время.
Okay, we're moving on. Никаких иностранных фильмов практически не было. За исключением там некоторых индийских, корейских. There were almost no foreign movies except for some Indian and Korean ones. Here the interesting word is практически, and we met it too in the previous episodes, but I'll explain it again. It can mean practically. I guess you recognize it. Practically, практически. And also it can mean almost. For example, there was almost no one in the class, Russian language class. Практически никого не было в классе. Or in literal meaning, it can be theoretically and practically. Теоретически и практически. Easy to remember. Also, you hear all of a sudden the word там. Usually you know it as there. Там было темно. It was dark there. Там много народа. Много людей. Many people there. But here, там is something like, you know, in English. There were no movies except, you know, Indian and Korean ones. So it's just the junk word. And it's very, very common in conversational Russian. Okay, listen to this sentence one more time.
Никаких иностранных фильмов практически не было, за исключением там некоторых индийских, корейских.
And I hope you understood. We're moving to the next sentence. И то есть для ребёнка, который вот любит такую вот фантастику. And for a child who loves fantasy. You see how short this sentence is in English and how long it was in Russian. Because it was full of all those junk words again. My husband must have been too excited speaking about Star Wars, forgot how to speak properly. You see, he used the junk word вот 2 times in one short sentence. Shame on you, the husband of the Russian language teacher. Okay, enough with humiliation and let's go back to vocabulary. Interesting word I see here. It's the word фантастика. Фантастика. And there are 3 words in the Russian language that are very often confused by people. And those words are фантазия, фантастика, and fantasy. So the first one, фантазия, means fantasy or imagination. For example, your child has a great imagination. У твоего ребёнка прекрасная фантазия. The second word is фантастика, and especially научная фантастика, and it means the science fiction. You know, when people try to predict what's gonna happen in the future, but they still use the laws of our universe. And the third one, fantasy. Fantasy. I guess in English it must be fantasy too, obviously. And this one means something magical, something not real, something that doesn't exist in real world, unfortunately. Like dragons, magic. For example, The Lord of the Rings is fantasy. Властелин колец – это fantasy. And so is Game of Thrones. Игра престолов – это fantasy. And here he didn't finish his sentence and just said, снято здорово. It's so well filmed. This word здорово is a synonym of отлично, хорошо, круто, великолепно, здорово. Всё здорово. Everything's fine. Everything's going so well. Здорово. And the last sentence in this passage. По тем временам спецэффекты просто очень крутые. For those times, the special effects were very cool. Interesting expression по тем временам. In those times, in those days. In textbooks, they usually use another version of it. В то время, or maybe в те времена. But in real conversational Russian, much more common is по тем временам. For example, in those days, it was considered normal. I don't know what, something was considered normal. По тем временам это считалось нормальным. Or maybe some beautiful woman from the 50s. She was the beauty of that time. По тем временам она была красавицей. It means that now the standards of beauty have changed, so today she wouldn't be the beauty, but 60 years ago it was the quintessence of beauty. So that time, по тем временам. Now listen to this passage in real speed and try to understand.
И то есть для ребенка, который вот любит такую вот фантастику, снято, здорово, по тем временам спецэффекты просто очень крутые.
Okay, now it's time for my line. And I said, ну да, это сейчас они кажутся уже такими забавными. Yeah, it's just now they seem sort of funny. Again, you see this ну да, just the intro to the sentence. The adjective забавный is a synonym of смешной, веселый, but in a good way. So it's not to make fun of something, it's just something funny in a really good way. Okay, listen to it one more time.
Ну да, это сейчас они кажутся уже такими забавными.
And we're moving on. My husband replied. И вот эти вот как раз световые мечи, которые вот необычные такие совершенно. And these lightsabers that are absolutely unusual. And again, it's just impossible to translate these sentences. Let me count those junk words again. I see 5 of them. 5 words that are absolutely unnecessary here. Listen again. И вот эти вот как раз световые мечи, которые вот необычные такие совершенно. If you rephrase it to normal Russian, it would sound like и совершенно необычные световые мечи. Absolutely unusual lightsabers. The rest of the sentence is just conversational Russian. And actually, that's why it's important to learn using real materials, like this dialogue, for example, because if you come to Russia, no one is going to talk to you using the textbook Russian, because nobody speaks like that. Okay, let's move to the next sentence. Вот это философия как раз вот джедайская. And this Jedi philosophy. Again, it was enough to say just и джедайская философия. And the last part of his passage, after that I will insert the real part of the dialogue. So he said, это вот на мой тогда еще не окрепший ум оказало неизгладимое впечатление. And this had an incredible impression on my fragile mind. No wonder, remember that he was 6 years old. And soon you will hear that he laughed saying that. And pay attention to his intonation, because here, exactly, he used this textbook official Russian. And because nobody speaks like that, he just laughed. Because it's a very beautiful phrase. An incredible impression on my fragile mind. На мой неокрепший ум оказало неизгладимое впечатление. And very common phrase is неизгладимое впечатление. Incredible impression. For example, the trip to Russia left a lasting impression on me. Поездка в Россию произвела на меня неизгладимое впечатление. Or maybe someone met a really beautiful woman, and meeting her left an incredible impression on me. Встреча с ней произвела на меня неизгладимое впечатление. You will meet this phrase a lot in fiction, in movies, but in everyday life I doubt that. Maybe just for fun someone will use it like we did in our dialogue. Неизгладимое впечатление. Incredible impression. Okay, now listen to this in real speed.
И вот это вот как раз световые мечи, которые вот необычные такие совершенно. Вот эта философия как раз вот джедайская. Это вот на мой тогда неокрепший ум оказало неизгладимое впечатление.
And we're getting closer to the ending, and I asked, ну, а кто твой любимый персонаж? And who's your favorite character? The word персонаж is a synonym of герой, hero. So here I could also ask, кто твой любимый герой? And it's just the same. Персонаж comes from the word persona, person, персонаж. So it means the character. And he replied, персонаж, character? Ну, конечно, Han Solo. Well, Han Solo, of course. And I so agreed with him. I said, да, yeah, because he's just awesome, nothing to talk about here. And the last sentence, he said, но в отличие от многих, кстати, мне очень нравится Luke. By the way, unlike many others, I like Luke. And it's pretty surprising for me, because I don't like him at all. And now listen to this part one more time.
Ну, а кто твой любимый персонаж?
Персонаж? Ну, конечно, Хан Соло. Но
да.
Вот в отличие от многих, кстати, мне очень нравится Люк.
I hope you got it. And if you didn't, you have one last chance, because now I'm gonna play the whole dialogue one more time. If you don't understand everything, at least try to recognize the words we were talking about. Good luck with that.
Давай поговорим про «Звёздные войны». Это... О, глазки-то загорелись, так, загорелись глазоньки. Ну, давай. Почему это твой любимый фильм?
О, я смотрел его с 6 лет по несколько раз.
Ты с 6 лет фанат.
Фанат «Звёздных войн». Поскольку это 88-й год, фактически это еще советское время, никаких иностранных фильмов практически не было, за исключением там некоторых индийских, корейских. И то есть для ребенка, который вот любит такую вот фантастику, снято здорово. По тем временам спецэффекты просто очень крутые.
Ну да, это сейчас они кажутся уже такими забавными.
И вот это вот как раз световые мечи, которые вот необычные такие совершенно. Вот эта философия как раз вот джедайская. Это вот на мой тогда неокрепший ум оказало неизгладимое впечатление.
Ну, а кто твой любимый персонаж?
Персонаж? Ну, конечно, Хан Соло. Но
Да.
вот в отличие от многих, кстати, мне очень нравится Люк.
And that was it. I hope you enjoyed, and don't forget to let me know if you liked this format or not. I really need to know if I should do it next time or I should not. What else? If you like Star Wars, also, I'll be happy to talk about that. You can always find me at realrussianclub@gmail.com. So any questions, suggestions, requests, or maybe just words, nice words, I hope, but also some critical words. They would be nice too. Also, if you're interested in learning the real Russian language, you can check out my book, 600 Real Russian Phrases for Everyday Life. It consists of PDF with those 600 phrases and also MP3 files to practice your pronunciation. And you can find it at my website, realrussianclub.com/book. I'll put all the links to the show notes as usual. And by the way, the dialogue will be right there too. So go and have a look. And I guess that was it for today. May the force be with you, and I hope to see you in the next episode of the Slow Russian Language Podcast. Bye-bye!